Hello and welcome to the Inspire Life podcast. My name is Michael. I am your producer and co-host, and today I'm really excited to be interviewing Dr. Samara Sterling with the Peanuts Institute. Dr. Sterling is the Director of Research at the Peanuts Institute, and she's going to share with us some tips and strategies to eat to address anxiety and stress, and to really, look at food as a way to help empower us and help us heal rather than being a hindrance and hurting our health. Dr. Sterling has been passionate about nutrition and wellness ever since she was young, and has really taken her passion and turned it into a career when she's been able to impact countless lives for the better. So, before we jump into the episode, let's hear a word from one of our sponsors. This episode of the Inspire Life podcast is brought to you by Inspire Health Coaching, helping busy professionals overcome food addiction to reclaim their energy and optimize their lives. Our holistic approach to coaching will help you find new realities of peace and ease in meals, movement, and mindset. Through creating a wellness vision, long-term goals, and weekly experiments, you'll find yourself creating a new life, all with the support and accountability of a trusted coach who has been through it. If you want to learn more about what we do, how we work with people to accomplish their health and wellness goals, or to set up your initial consultation, text us at 651-500-8162. Or, if you have ideas for the podcast or blog, know someone who might be an awesome guest, or even just if you want to connect more with someone who has been there, don't hesitate to text or email us at michael@coachkrug.com. Now, let's jump into the episode. Welcome everyone to the Inspire Life podcast. My name is Michael. I am your producer and co-host, and today I am really excited to be interviewing Dr. Samara Sterling with the Peanut Institute. And Dr. Sterling, I'll let you actually start by introducing yourself and kind of the role that you're in and some of the cool work that you're up to.
Okay, sure. And thanks so much again for having me. I'm excited to talk with you today and just talk a little bit about nutrition. Yes. My background is in nutrition. I'm a nutrition scientist, and as you mentioned, I'm the research director for the Peanut Institute. And here what we do, I actually wear a lot of hats, but one of the things that we do here is we support research that looks into how peanut consumption affects human health. So my general background is in plant-based nutrition for the prevention and treatment of chronic diseases, as well as just overall health and wellness. I have been interested in nutrition from a very young age, and I guess it's just something that sort of followed me through life. And as I looked at the benefits of foods when I was deciding whether or not I wanted to get an advanced education in this area, I remember sort of thinking about the idea that I was not familiar with, that what we eat can actually impact our health in some way. This was a foreign concept for me. So when I decided to actually pursue that, it was life-changing because I saw just how many areas of the body food actually impacts. And so for me, I love the work that I do here with the Peanut Institute, as well as just plant-based nutrition in general, as well as community health. And I think it's inspiring to be able to talk to people about something that all affects us.
Yeah, well, I thank you for sharing, your story and how you got to the Peanut Institute and really kind of being on the forefront of understanding how important food is for overall health and how it impacts our health in different ways. And also with plant-based eating too. So I'm excited, maybe in the future we'll talk more about that. But for today, we're specifically going to be talking about nutrition to reduce stress and anxiety, which I don't have the numbers in front of me, but we know that stress and anxiety are two things that a lot of us Americans especially deal with on a day-to-day basis, things that are often precursors and have influence on other chronic disease that we experience. So, just to start on this topic, what is, from your perspective, Dr. Sterling, what is the biggest connection with nutrition, with stress and anxiety? How do these two concepts kind of intersect and influence one another?
Well, that's a good question. I think, well, you talked about anxiety and stress affecting Americans, and the actual number is around 40 million Americans
Wow.
suffer with some form of anxiety disorder. And the thing about anxiety disorders, though, is that we are finding that it's highly treatable, right? And in many different ways, this can intersect in different areas of our lives. As we talk about nutrition, how that actually intersects, I like to think about it from three different perspectives. So, nutrition affects us physiologically, so literally how our internal body systems function, mentally, or you can say emotionally, mentally, as well as psychologically, and how nutrition affects stress and anxiety. So let's just take physiologically, for example. We know that there's research that links foods to being able to restore balance to our neurotransmitters, or these agencies that transmit information to our brain and throughout the body. And for example, there was a recent study that showed that there's a specific compound called p-cumaric acid. It's a phytochemical that you find in many foods. Um, and this particular compound is able to target a neurotransmitter called GABA in the brain. And what that does, that neurotransmitter is specifically responsible for regulating mood and stress and anxiety. And what that research showed was that p-cumaric acid, that compound, was able to target that neurotransmitter and subsequently potentially decrease anxiety and stress. So it's very interesting because, in terms of what we know about the brain and stress and anxiety in general, there are a lot of unknowns that are still there. However, the indications from what we do know is that literally in a direct way, those compounds, those antioxidants, those phytochemicals that our foods contain, specifically in plant foods, can actually target those receptors. I'll mention another one, which is serotonin. We've many of us have heard of serotonin, which is another one that regulates mood, etc. And that we find serotonin in quite a bit of foods like nuts and seeds. Eggs have that will increase your serotonin levels, I should say. And so there is that connection there, and I would say that's one of the biggest connections, is that physiological or physical connection that food has with our brain. And then when we just think about mentally and emotionally, I'll just say that psychologically, when we just think about that, when we eat better, we actually feel better about ourselves. There is
Mm-hmm.
some qualitative research that kind of gets into that. So the more we get into things like clean eating, minimizing processed foods, minimizing sugars in our diet, we literally feel a sense of empowerment, and that gives us motivation to live healthier lives in general. So it's a very real effect that that has on the mind. But we know that stress is not just a psychological thing, it's also an emotional thing, it's also a physical thing. And we know that sometimes when it comes on to what we eat, we may eat out of stressful situations. So, for example, you're feeling stressed at work because of a big event coming up. You may just run and grab a donut and a coffee just in the middle of it. Nothing wrong with donuts and coffee. If you like donuts and coffee, but we may tend to do that, and that will that sort of creates this cycle, because many times when we eat out of our emotional stressors, we tend to regret that later on. And it just brings us into a cycle of more stress and eating emotionally. And that can send us into a downward spiral. So, what we want to do is to be able to avoid that and to use nutrition in positive ways that will affect our brains and affect our overall mental health in ways that can affect us positively in the long run.
It's so powerful, and you touched on so many important points. Uh, One thing, the big one that you mentioned, that p-cumaric acid, I'd never actually heard of that. So I personally am going to do some more research about that. But you talk about how, chemical messengers within the body are heavily impacted by food. That's the physiological level. You also mentioned too how when we are making healthier food decisions, that it increases what it sounded like you were saying is that it really increases our sense of autonomy. It increases our self-efficacy with, desiring more of those foods. And, when we're eating things like nuts and seeds and fruit and fresh vegetables, we really feel like we're, the psychological level that we're doing something good for ourselves, and we're almost more inclined to do it. And then the last point that you made about stress eating, and how, so often, especially in our culture, when, we have full schedules and there's a lot going on and we're feeling stressed, we're in that more of a fight or flight state. It's so much easier to just go find those quick, a lot of times sugary, simple carbohydrate type foods that you can just grab and go with, when in reality, that's a time when we really maybe should be kind of trying to focus on getting high frequency, as we call it, or really good energy, clean, as you said, foods. So many important points there and directions we can go. I thank you for touching on all those points.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um,
And I think that like you just talked about that sense of autonomy and self-efficacy, and you said something that I think is key. That when we are engaging in stress, when we have stressors, that actually is the time when we need to pay more attention to what we're putting in our bodies, because that will affect us more in the long run. So I agree with that.
Yeah. So building off of that, when it comes to addressing stress and anxiety that we're experiencing, and, figuring out ways to not go for the coffee and the donut, what kind of tips or strategies or any ideas that you have for our listeners on how to, be more proactive and make sure that if we do come across a higher stress time, that we're able to make those decisions that we know will serve us rather than hinder our health.
I think that goes back to a concept that we've been touching on here, but that we haven't necessarily named. But it's
Mhm.
called mindful eating.
Yeah.
So mindful eating is the idea of maintaining in the moment awareness of the foods that you're eating, and just the things that you're consuming in general. And when we talked about just picking up a sugary snack, just on a whim, that would be the opposite of mindful eating. That's sort of a mindless eating. You're just sort of doing it in the moment, sort of like you're on autopilot. But I think one of the things that helps us is to really become more aware and living in our present moment, and understanding, for example, the motivations behind why you are eating. So, for example, on every eating occasion, or on one eating occasion, you can just ask yourself a simple question. Why am I eating right now? Am I hungry? Am I emotional? Am I tired? And just assessing the situation, number one, is a first step. And then if we recognize that we are prone to, let's say, eating when we are stressed or tired, then one of the steps that we can take is to literally sort of map out our eating occasions throughout the day, if it helps. This doesn't work for everyone, but for some, it is very helpful. So, for example, one of the things that you can do is set regular eating times. That tends to be helpful as well, because again, it goes back to that sense of control and that sense of autonomy. So, having regular eating times throughout the day, and that would include your big meals as well as your snacks. And then, one of the things that I would also say is for the snacks, you want to have healthy snacks on hand, nutrient dense snacks that are on hand, because throughout the day, Americans, we tend to snack quite a bit. I forget the exact number, but I think it's anywhere between 80 to 90%. Don't quote me on that, but just anywhere, I think it's between 80 to 90% of Americans snack at least one time throughout the day. So we know that snacking tends to be important within our culture, and that is one area that we need to be mindful of as we are eating. So having those healthy snacks. So for example, you say, okay, I'm going to have a snack at 10 o'clock in the morning if I feel hungry, and then you know that you have a banana right there that you can just grab. Otherwise, as they say, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, right? So if
Mhm.
we are intentional about eating healthier and taking care of our bodies, then those are just some of the tips that we can do to kind of help us to stay on track throughout the day.
That's awesome. I thank you for sharing all of that. That mindful eating component is so important, really recognizing, what is causing me to eat right now? Am I truly hungry? Is it stress related? Is it because I have usually at this time? So being more aware of that. And then two, like you said, uh, the failing to plan is planning to fail. That's so important, especially when it comes to food and snacks, especially. I mean, personally, I meal prep every week, and then I always have, and I like that you said banana, because my go-to snack that I have almost every day is a banana with peanut butter, because those are
Mm,
like
mhm,
two of my favorite foods combined. So
mhm,
that's just, making sure you have those things available to you so that you're not in a reactive state and being like, okay, well, if I have to stop somewhere, most likely, if you're stopping at a coffee shop or a gas station or something, the options aren't always the best. So,
right,
um,
right, and you said banana and peanut butter. I agree with you there. I have the same sort of snack craving. In fact, I typically travel about 50 to 60% of the time for my job. Obviously, not right now, but typically that's what happens. And I will tell you that wherever I go, I'll always have a banana with me, and I'll always have a snack pack of peanuts and some peanut butter, because I think, just snacks like that in general help you to make sure that you always have something healthy on hand, so that if you do get hungry, you can eat that.
hmm yeah, I mean, that snack alone, we could talk about that snack, peanut butter with banana for probably hours, just how the macronutrients are so great, micronutrients and everything. But long story short, too, I think what comes down to for our listeners is to, do some experimentation. Maybe you're not a big fan of bananas and peanut butter. I know personally my girlfriend doesn't like bananas because of the texture. So maybe it's an apple and peanut butter. Maybe it's just, doing some experimentation so that you have things that are prepared for you when you're hungry and ready to eat. So,
Right, right.
Dr. Sterling, we're coming towards the end of our episode. I do want to ask one more question, which I ask every guest. If there's one sort of takeaway, one piece of information, or whatever it may be, strategy that you want our listeners to take away from today's episode, what would that be?
There's one thing that I haven't mentioned, and it is this: that when I look at the bigger picture of food and how we eat today, it's very different from what we see historically and in societies that may not necessarily be as fast paced. What we see is that food is a community occasion. And we see this in many parts of the world. We see that food is connected to family and it's connected to community. And in essence, what this means is that food is a source of enjoyment. And I think that that is one place that, as we talk about mindful eating and as we talk about stress and anxiety, if we associate our eating occasions with something that is pleasurable, healthy, yes, nutritious, yes, but also enjoying our foods and enjoying taking time to actually stop, enjoying the tastes that we are experiencing, enjoying the communities that are around us. I think that those are ways that really contribute to helping us to live a better quality life, a more stress-free life, a more enjoyable life, so that we can actually connect all the parts of our lives to something that benefits us all, where food is something that is pleasurable, not just something that we are doing for survival. And I think that's really the goal that we need to get to.
I love that. That's such an important message. And, I was listening to a podcast a couple weeks ago where they were talking about emotional eating and stress eating and how um, eating in a group, eating, like you said, with friends, with family, to celebrate, to have food be something where we're really experiencing a lot of joy around. Like
Mm,
you said, that's something that used to be more prevalent, and it's been prevalent in other cultures and not so much here in the United States, and something that uh, it'll be interesting to see, if there's more research about it, but just how we can really keep that in mind, as that is also another part of the mindful eating is really sharing that experience and sharing the joy with others as well.
Right.
So I
Yeah.
thank you so much, Dr. Sterling, for taking time out of your schedule to be on the Inspire Life podcast. I thank you for all of the work that you do, for sharing a lot of truth and knowledge with the greater good and helping address the food crisis and a lot of what we have going on in our country around food, and helping be a vessel for the good and for what's possible when it comes to eating in our society. So
yeah, and thank you so much again for having me. It's been great to have this conversation, and I think more conversations like these, we need to have these around our dinner table, podcasts like these, and I think just in general, as we do that, we raise more awareness together as a community, and hopefully this will put us all in the right direction of eating one step healthier for a healthier world.
yes. Yep, we'll take it a moment at a time and we'll keep having the conversations. And as for you, enjoy your birthday and your vacation week very much.
Thank you.
And yes, to all of our listeners, until next time, keep inspiring. Thank you. Thanks for tuning into the Inspire Life podcast today. To learn more about Dr. Sterling and to check out the Peanuts Institute, please click the link in the notes of this episode. Also, please make sure that you comment, like, and subscribe on whatever channel it is that you're tuning into the Inspire Life podcast on today. That helps us get the word out to more people to help everyone continue to live an inspired and thriving life. And lastly, hop on over to Facebook and join the Inspired Living community. There, Dr. Mel and I share all of our content to help you continue to crush your health and wellness goals. And until next time, keep inspiring. Thank you.